it seems like it's been kind of crazy since you've left the media, right? Like it doesn't seem like it's getting. Do you think like the reputation is getting better with the media and stuff? Because I want to discuss this. I want to discuss this with you further, but like I kind of want to know like what your thoughts are on like where we're going. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just seems like folks are I don't know kind of overreacting a little bit too much like with the media stuff, and it seems like everybody wants to be the media. Elon Musk is telling me I'm the media because I'm on X. It just seems like that's
Yep.
kind of a wild proposition to tell people.
Yeah, citizen journalists, which there are a lot of good citizen journalists. So I
Yeah.
don't want to like, you know,
Yeah.
denounce that at all. But I mean, I think that was part of a reason for, not a big part of it, but I think that there was a part of me that was just like, it's gotten so divisive. There's been such an attack on the media.
Yeah.
And there's just such a push for everyone to be doing everything and all of that. So I think that, there comes a point where I think a lot of people are just like, well, what does this look like into the future?
Yeah.
And it is somewhat concerning. But the one thing that I will say is that journalism is so needed, and I think needed more today than ever, and into the future, and good journalists who are still digging deep into stories. But I think that becomes problematic too, because everybody wants more with less. Budgets are being cut, small town papers are going away, all these conglomerates are merging stations, and so it's hard to see kind of what the future of it looks like, I think, in a lot of ways. But I can't stress enough how important it is to continue to support local journalism. And I'm going to put on my, marketing hat here or whatever. But just, I think that there's a part of me that's just like, what else can be done to get people to subscribe to their local papers and people who are really passionate about, continuing to have a good voice in journalism and keep it about the facts and about telling people stories and letting you know what's going on in the world, because we want an informed electorate and an informed society. And if journalism is just taking such a back seat or becoming something else, then where do we go with that?
Yeah. And the other thing too is I don't know if you ever had a paper route growing up.
Yeah.
I had friends with paper routes, and I would love when they needed help because it was good money.
Yeah.
It was good money as a kid.
Pretty fun too, except when the dogs attacked you.
Yeah. I just remember being in the back of a station wagon throwing them, and it was super fun. It was great. Well, Karina Kling, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. What was the coffee order today?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty simple. It's just coffee with a little bit of almond milk in it, so pretty easy.
Well, thank you for being here. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Appreciate you being here. Everybody that comes on the show gets a intro. Now, Karina Kling is the communications director for Hillco Partners, a lobbying firm in Austin, Texas. She works with the firm's clients on developing communications and media strategies, messaging, and digital content to support their legislative and public affairs goals. It's a big job. And then prior to joining Hillco, Kling covered Texas politics for nearly 2 decades as an award-winning journalist for Spectrum News, where she served as the host and managing editor of Texas's only nightly program, Capital Tonight. That's a big deal. You were kind of the face of, Texas politics for almost 2 decades as a journalist. That was a big responsibility to kind of deliver not just the news, but just what's going on with our capital and everything.
Yeah, it was, and it was. I mean, it was a job that I set out to do. It was a wonderful opportunity, and I started as the political reporter. We launched the show, and was there to help launch it. Kind of came up with this idea of
you launched the whole thing.
Yeah, I was part of the team that did it. I was the reporter at the time, and my predecessor, Paul Brown, I don't know if you remember him, he was one of the anchors at the station at the time, and all of us who just kind of loved politics were like, well, what about this? And our news director was really loved politics, so he pushed for it to happen, and it was happening at some of our sister stations and stuff. And so we started one night a week. And that was for, I guess, the 2011 session, legislative session, and then went in 2013. We're like, why don't we do this 5 nights a week? And everybody thought we were crazy because they're like, what are you going to do in the interim? But Strangely enough, Texas politics, there's never a dull moment.
Okay, I want to kind of start from the beginning. How did you get into this into journalism? You know, it makes me want to ask, like, what's a nice girl like you doing a place like this, right? Like,
Yeah.
why journalism? Was there something in your childhood that sparked your interest, or looking back, you're like, okay, that makes sense that I went into journalism?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I mean, I remember like always sitting around and watching the evening news, like the local news. I grew up in Kansas, so Wichita, Kansas was our kind of station that we watched, the stations there, and then the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. Like I just remember that being instilled in me very young. But I wasn't like one of those kids who, at least that I remember, I mean, maybe my mom would say otherwise, but like had a hairbrush in front of the mirror and was like anchoring fake broadcasts or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think the real push for me was kind of when I realized that, oh, this is kind of brings together a lot of what I love to do with writing, somewhat with performing. My parents were both theater professors, so I grew up, you know, kind of in that area in music. But I was in yearbook in high school.
Okay.
And one of my teachers had pushed me to, you know, be part of the yearbook class and team. And I just loved going out and talking to even my classmates about, you know, different things that we were wanting to do a story on, or the teachers. And then also I was taking all the photographs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to date myself a lot, but I was like developing them in a dark room.
You had to develop in a dark room? That's amazing.
Yeah, I wish I still had that skill. I don't know that I could tell you anything about it today, but and I think it was just, you know, it was putting together like this whole piece, visually, the writing part of it, and sharing other people's stories. And there was something about it that I was just like, I really like this.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go through a bunch of different majors in college. I knew what I wanted to do. I did double major in music, but had a great school for undergrad, and then went to graduate school at Syracuse University, where it really kind of prepped me for going out into the quote unquote real world and getting my first job. And
yeah. Okay. So you were pretty focused then. If you're doing undergrad journalism, you know, a master's in journalism. Okay. So what's the first job coming out of the master's program?
I was a reporter, actually the bureau reporter in Grand Island, Nebraska.
Okay.
It was for a station in Lincoln, but they had, you know, this bureau in Grand Island, which I went to undergrad at a small school in Nebraska. And so it was just about an hour from there. So that was nice because I had a lot of my undergrad friends still around the area in Lincoln. And so I was there about a year and then moved into the Lincoln newsroom.
So you're like on the spot reporter, like out.
Yeah. We joke because there was another reporter, two of us in the bureau, and I don't know that any of our news directors really understood how big Nebraska was, because it was just like Lincoln, and then you guys cover everything else. So they'd tell us one day, it was like, go cover something in this town, and and by the way, swing by the city council meeting in whatever that was like 2 hours away, and we'd be like, do they know this is not close at all? But yeah, it really prepped me for a life in journalism, and especially you know, it was just all of us were. And still today, I think that, you know, we talk about the changing world of media and journalism, but I was the quote-unquote one-man band, I think multimedia journalist, whatever you want to call it, but I'm shooting, writing, editing all my own stuff.
So you do the camera work as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
30 pounds of gear running around, probably why my back hurts today. And but
what brought you back into the studio? So at some point you come back into the studio?
Yeah, so in Lincoln, I guess promoted to, I was doing the morning newscast there.
What's morning? That sounds very early.
It was.
That sounds like some
shout out
comms
to
and
all
news.
those morning anchors, man. It's a fun, because it's kind of this whole, it's your own world.
Yeah.
Like you have to live it to like understand the people who do it, and morning newscasts are, you know, a lot of times more lighthearted and fun, and so I got to do a lot of fun things on that, but it was a 2:30 wake up call.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay, so what time are you going to bed if you're waking up at 2:30 in the morning?
I would try to be in bed by 6:30, but you know, when it's still light out, it was always so tough, and I was just constantly tired.
How could you not be at 2:30 wake up?
Just constantly tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I didn't start drinking coffee actually till later in life, but that was when I started drinking coffee.
Did you?
Yeah.
I would assume so that you need
I
some
was like,
caffeine.
yeah, I need something. But so yeah, I worked there for 3 years, and then I came to Austin in 2008, man. It's hard to believe. And then never left.
But that morning news people, I feel like it's such an important role to get people's day started in such a nice way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you have time to watch the morning news, like those folks really, I don't know, there's just something like warm and fuzzy, and you're like, okay, I got my news in.
Yeah.
I'm good to go. And just such, like you said, lighthearted. It just seems like it's such a really important role.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, and we had fun things like cooking segments on, and it was the meteorologist is such a key part of the morning show because everybody wants to know what the weather's going to be like for the day, and so we were close friends, and I had a co-anchor, and so we had a good time. Yeah,
I bet. Okay, so but you have a great gig in Nebraska, and why Austin, Texas? What brought you here?
Yeah, well, I think everybody in journalism, you go to your first job never thinking you'll stay there forever. You go to your second job never thinking you'll stay there forever. That was not the case with me, but I think I just kind of was at a point where I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to move to a bigger market. I'm ready to, and at the time I was really thinking that I would be, going to do that job 2-3 years, go to my next job for 2-3 years, go to the next place, and then probably try my hand at the national media.
Okay. Is that kind of the life cycle of
and I think
journalism?
that's what everybody gets in their thinking at least. But then there's times when you have a family or things get, other things happen, or you really love your job, and there's some, the people that I watched growing up had been there forever, and they just loved being the anchor in Wichita, Kansas, and I see that, and I mean, I did that in Austin, Texas for 16 years, so yeah.
So did you get your job at Spectrum then? Is that what brought you here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
oh, really?
It was News 8 Austin at the time.
Okay. And are you an anchor when you start?
No, I came in, I was like the bureau beat for a long time, because I came in and I was the Williamson County bureau reporter.
Okay.
That's what I was hired to do.
And what does that mean that you're the bureau?
So I cover like Williamson County.
Okay.
Anything that was happening. I was actually living up there, and we had a little office up there it was actually at the cable, like where you would go to get your cable box.
Oh, really?
It was just like me in a back room, and then all of these workers in the front, and like.
Sounds very glamorous.
Yeah, it was not very glamorous. I'm pretty sure they've shut that studio down now. So it wasn't even a studio. It was like a back room where I had a little editing equipment. But yeah, I was there for, I don't even know that I was there a year, maybe. And then I had covered politics in Lincoln.
Okay.
And then knew that, wanted to move to another capital city to continue doing that. And so I just, every time there was a story that I could jump on, there was a political reporter at the time at the station here. But she knew I loved it, and she left a year after I was here. And, it was just like, told our news director, you need to give Karina the job. So shout out to her for helping me out too. And yeah, I guess the rest is history on that.
Okay, so why politics? So it seems like you like things that are, have people have opinions on the media and politics.
I laugh because my brothers asked me that question several years ago, but they're just like, when did you become like interested in politics? And because they're like, now you're like a political show host and all of this stuff. And I took a political reporting class in graduate school.
Okay.
And my professor there, I just loved her, and I love the idea of shaping a story and telling people stories, and there's so many different stories to tell, but this was one that it was also like you're holding lawmakers and people in power accountable. These are issues and kitchen table issues and everything that you're getting to report on that actually have a real effect on people's lives. And I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, and there's so many people who just aren't active in politics, and not that they have to be, but they don't understand that even just being a little engaged can really make a big difference. And I was just like, I want to go be the person who they're showing up to testify at a committee hearing, and why are they so passionate to be able to do this, but also how do other people get involved to be able to, affect real change and inform an audience of how they can, be civically engaged, politically engaged, and just kind of have the opportunity to hone in on that, but tell those stories in a way that resonates with, I guess, an audience too.
Yeah. So it sounds like you want to make your work to be meaningful.
Yeah.
To mean something for the country and the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you say to somebody? I'm sure you get it, right? When you go to dinner parties or anywhere, and you're like, anywhere, they're like, ask you what you do. What do you say to people when they're like, I hate the media and I hate politics?
It's like, well, let me tell you what I do.
Yeah, exactly. Great way to ask, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm pretty sure that has happened to me. Like it's, or somebody will just go off and then they're like, oh, and what do you do? I'm like, I'm a journalist. So like, sorry. I part of it though, I love, because then you can explain to them. But I also love the idea of just, when I was anchoring and stuff, they're like, oh, you read the news. I was like, no, that is not all I do. And so there's just kind of this, I don't know, misconception, or just everything just appears.
Yeah.
That you can read from the teleprompter. And I'm like, no, I'm doing a lot of research and writing all the scripts and, helping put the show together. But I think just, I don't know, I'm such a big believer in journalism, and I, will always continue to be. I may have stepped out of like that realm to some extent, but I think people understand, and I think that they, once they kind of hear you out and what you're trying to do, and not everybody will agree with you, and but that's part of the beauty of it too.
Yeah, that's what makes it exciting, right?
Yeah.
Do you think do you blame Will Ferrell and Anchorman for making people think that
gosh.
all you do is read the news?
That's probably what happened. I actually had a friend who, God bless him, but I was home for Christmas, and he was a friend from high school, and I don't know, some of us had gotten together, and Anchorman maybe just came out, and he said to me, oh, I watched one of your stories the other day. And he was like, it was so weird. Didn't you do a story on like a cat fashion show? I go, no, that was Veronica Corningstone. Did you just watch Anchorman? I was like, he was so serious. And I was just like, please tell me you're joking. I was like, yeah, I've done some really strange stories, but that was not one of them.
Not mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So almost doing almost 2 decades of media, you've seen quite the change, right? So when you came in, has social media started at that point? Did you come in with social media?
I think I had signed up for Facebook at Syracuse, because it was my like syr.edu account.
Yeah.
So that was my first. Man, I'm really sounding old.
No, because you missed then, because you're sounding young, because then if you didn't start on MySpace, remember we had to rank your friends?
I did. I guess I did have MySpace too. So maybe MySpace was college, and then grad school I was getting on Facebook. Yeah.
So that's already there then when you start working. Like, I mean, for Facebook to already be alive.
Mm-hmm. But it was still very new. Mm-hmm. So I had my first job was in 2005 in Lincoln, Grand Island. But I mean, had you told me then what it is today, and Twitter, X, and all of the different things, I mean, I don't know how anybody would have prepared for that. And I think that some of that it's really frustrating from a journalism standpoint, because there's such, and maybe this was always the case, but I go back to like sitting down, and you would have to sit down at 5 o'clock or 5:30 for the national news at night to kind of see what happened, or get up in the morning and read the newspaper. And now it's just, everything is so instant. Yeah. And so it makes it harder on journalists to then tell, I think, deeper stories, because they're always trying to fight the time, and just being first to stuff. Yeah. But also just everything, I just feel so condensed as well. I mean, the 140 characters or whatever, I know you have more now too, but it just became kind of a race to see who's first, rather than, I think, being more thorough and like well thought out stories. And I think that kind of became problematic. Maybe that's evened out a bit now that it's not such a novelty, but I think at the beginning it just became, what is this, and how do we fight back against it? Yeah. But you kind of have to learn, because that's where, I mean, a lot of people are getting their news, and you've got to be able to, even if they're only reading the little short headline or whatever, you want them to click and read the story and go to the websites and whatnot, but sometimes that's just not the case.
So did you have to adopt to it, or not adopt to it, but adapt to it when? I mean, because I assume at some point you're seeing like your station get X handles or back then Twitter and getting Facebook pages. I mean, like, was that just, is it, kind of like almost like a frog in water boiling? Like you just got used to it because you grew up with it at that point? Is that kind of what happened with you during your career? Like it just happened while you're there?
Yeah. And I think some of it was, I mean, at the beginning, it was just kind of like everybody had their personal ones. And then it became, no, we want you to have one like a I don't know, personality page or like a professional page.
Yeah.
And then also your personal one. And I think some of that was just don't do anything bad on your professional page that could get you in trouble. But then everybody realizes, wait, they can see everything anytime and people can get onto that. So, but yeah, it was pushed a lot. I don't even know what the height of some of it. I don't know when the height of like, I mean, I guess it still is right now, but when it really became where we all had to have our Twitter accounts and they wanted us, doing so many tweets a day.
Did they? Okay.
And wanting us pushing all of that stuff out on there because I mean, at the end of the day, it's ratings or trying to get an audience and trying to, just, in order to stay alive and make a profit. So, sometimes that's sad to say, but media companies have to continue to thrive.
It's still business, right? At that point. And so, okay, so when did you take over as anchors? How long had you been at Spectrum before you took over as anchor?
Yeah, so I started there in 2008, started reporting on politics in 2009. We launched the show in 2011, and then my predecessor left in 2015, so I took over for him as anchor.
Wow.
In 2015.
Is that something you wanted to do, or something that kind of like could you see yourself doing that as you were in the business?
So I was always filling in for him, like when he was gone, and I wasn't expecting it. Like it was kind of a spur of the moment thing for him. He was actually finishing his doctorate and wanting to go teach, and so he was just like, if I'm ever going to finish this, I need to do it now. Yeah. And I was about to leave to go to Washington, D.C.
Were you really?
Yeah. And my news director pulled me in, and Paul, the person who anchored before me, had said, well, you might want to rethink it. Here's what's happening. So, yeah, it was a pretty quick decision, though, because it was a great opportunity. The station had been good to me, and I just wanted to see kind of where I could take the show next. Yeah. And so, and had a good group, my producers there at the time, and everybody, really pushing for me to stay. And so it just seemed like the great next step. And yeah.
Is that your favorite part about being a journalist? Is it the anchoring or being out on the scene? Do you have a favorite part?
That's tough. I mean, there's such like I think a love for both. The anchoring, I don't know. I probably like being out reporting. Just because you're getting to like meet new people and see and just be outside of the studio. But for the show that I was doing for so long with Capital Tonight, it was kind of a talk show, for lack of a better word. And so we had multiple guests coming in every day. So I kind of still had that side of it, which is what I love the most. Just being able to obviously interview and talk to people and have this dialogue with them. But I think sometimes I was still editing and putting together the video and different things for the show. So I maintained, and I was still like, I need to go out and report now. Like I still wanted to keep that going too. So I tried to keep a pretty, good balance of both.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you're having to do a lot then. If you're having to edit, make sure you know who the guest is that's on there. So you're doing research. I mean, it seems like a big gig.
Yeah, and I just go back to like, no, I'm not just reading. But
which is too bad, because that'd be kind of a fun job too.
Very cush job, I know. Probably would have never left. But, and no, but I mean, I think, and maybe there are some people that can get away with that. I don't know, but I always wanted to be more informed than the person I was bringing on, and I wanted to be ready in those interview situations, and I wanted to know that I was giving our viewers and the audience and whoever something that they could be educated about that would help, them form an opinion or at least want to think more about an issue. And so I could never have just like walked into something blindly.
Yeah. And during that time, because it seems like your show wasn't like a gotcha show. Like you weren't trying to get somebody or shock them. And how did you guys continue following your North Star of like, hey, this is our show versus, because during that time it seemed like what really got popular was those gotcha shows or the very confrontational, loud and in the face. It seemed like y'all show was always very professional and wanted to get the actual facts out of everything. How did y'all avoid that kind of the temptation to go that route that you started to see? Because right at some point during your career you start seeing that, right? Like those people get very popular very quick.
They do, and I think it was, kind of probably twofold. Like there was a lot of push from the station and the company as a whole to be nonpartisan. Some people would laugh at that, I think because anybody with journalism these days are like, nobody's nonpartisan. But there was a real push from the top down to be that way. But I think it was also, I not to like toot my own horn or the person that anchored before me, but just having somebody that that kind of had that same mindset and that same mentality, and that was just never his way, and that's never been my way. And I just don't know that you get, to the heart of the issue and a whole lot out of it if it's just people yelling at each other. Yeah. And I also found that in our analysts, and maybe that's why we picked the people we did, because we saw them wanting to have this kind of real dialogue back and forth as opposed to just arguing and disagreeing to disagree. And so I think that, and they knew that it was a place, and they said a lot of times people would stop them out on the streets and say, we really appreciate, the fact that you might not agree at the end of the day, but you do it in a respectful way. Yeah. And so I think that was just something that we heard so much feedback on that we never wanted to change that too. Yeah.
And I guess, do you think the future is that? It seems like people are wanting more out of the news as far as like kind of back to that. Yeah. Do you feel like that's the future is kind of what you guys did, or?
I hope so. Yeah. I do. I think that I don't know if everyone wants that. There's maybe, I think it's hard because we go back to the idea of just everything so constant and so quick and being first. And, while when they are a 24-hour station, it's a nightly program, so it still kind of fits in the realm of the evening news type of situation, but the like all day every day cable news, I think it just becomes hard because you're also trying to fill time. Yeah. And that sounds terrible, but sometimes it's just like, let's bring on a panel, and this panelist may get out of hand, and so I don't know if there's ever a pushback from that, and I don't know how to try to navigate that in a sense, but I just know, and I hope that there's a place for shows like Capitol Tonight and more of that kind of journalism where it is trying to have people who can come on and have an honest dialogue, but one that's civil. Yeah. That would be nice.
It would be nice. How were you dealing with AI and all the disinformation we kept hearing about? Because you've seen it from from a standpoint of being the anchor and having to. Would you ever have to push back and say and have to explain to people, hey, that was disinformation. Yeah. This is where we are. Yeah. How were y'all dealing with that when you're in the anchor chair?
Yeah, we did a lot of stories on it, especially when it first kind of blew up and. I think it's hard. You see some of this stuff and you're just like, even to this day, I'll be looking at social media on Instagram or something. And I was like, is that a real picture? Is that, it's just, so I don't know. I know that there's gotta be more guardrails on it. I teach a couple classes at Austin Community College, and I put in sometimes students' papers into is this all just written by AI? Is this all just Chat GPT? And I don't know how great those things are really, giving you the honest answers of, yes, this is all written by a bot or AI, or this is them. But sometimes I'm like, this is way better than your last paper. Why is this? So trying to kind of disseminate that and figure out some balance of it. But I think just the more people can be educated on that again, and why, journalism is so important, of trying to be able to have people that aren't just writing stories through AI and going and doing the real like interviews and the research and the fact checking, to be able to help people, make sense of it and know what's information and what's disinformation. And but yeah, it's kind of a scary world sometimes.
It is. Did you feel though, because y'all were neutral and you try to, like you said, nonpartisan, did you feel like that gives people a more of a feeling that y'all are trying to give out the facts and being truthful? Did you feel like that helps with the public?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I always wanted that to be the case. I joke because I think, there are times when I would get an email. It was like, oh, you're so liberal about this point, and blah, 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 blah. And then the next night they'd be like, man, you're such a conservative. And I'm like, well, I guess I did my job, because if you're getting it from both sides, then you must be doing something right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think, everybody's always going to have their opinions, and myself included. But I just, at the end of the day, I think my whole thing was like, this isn't about me.
Yeah.
This is about our viewers and informing people and educating people and wanting to, do something each night with the show. And at the end of the day, that maybe somebody took away something that they didn't know before, or, a candidate that they didn't know about, or some kind of piece of legislation that they're like, oh, I want to go learn more about this. And I don't really agree with what that person just said about it. And coming armed with questions that can, press them on the issue, like a lawmaker or lobbyist or some kind of political activist, but in a way, and I think, our guests felt this too, in a way that I was going to be firm, but I would be fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And how would you deal with, PR and comms folks trying to get you to get their person on or pitch a story to you? What were some things that you saw that were good and some that weren't so great by comms folks?
I know, I'm being in that side now. We can talk more about that, but it's just, I try to think about all the good ones that I had over the years. Oh, I need to do it that way. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just, I think the biggest thing was just like, if you think you're going to get across with an email, don't, because there's just so many emails throughout the day.
Yeah.
Or if you do, making sure it's personal.
Okay.
The follow-up phone call, and just building the relationships. I mean, there's so much in journalism and, public relations, communications, that there's so much overlap in that. I think that's why you see so many journalists that go into comms, or, even vice versa, and who get it, because they get that kind of change and transfer, and it's there's a lot of overlap. But I think, when it comes down to it, it's about those personal relationships and about personal stories, because everybody can tell a story of what happened or a press conference or something. But if you're going to bring like a human and make it a humanized story, you can interview this person, or, we can get you in touch with somebody who can break this down in a way that nobody else can. Yeah. It's gonna help, cut through the noise, but also bring an audience in that they're like, oh yeah, this does affect me, or, oh, I can't believe that this is happening, because they're hearing it from somebody like them, or, somebody who could be their next door neighbor.
Yeah. So storytelling is still key.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
And I guess when it seems like people think, a lot of folks that don't do what you do, or comms, public relations, the press release seems to be like the gold standard. So are you telling us that you don't sit around waiting for press releases all day?
Now that I'm writing them, I'm like, please read my press releases. But I think they're still very effective. And I think a lot of it is it, and I've seen that in what I'm doing now too, is that through the press release, you can give information that they didn't have before. Yeah. So, and people who are trying to get a story up quickly, you put some quotes in there from, some of the people involved or whatever, and then they're like, boom, I've got a story. I can take these and write around it, can do some follow-up questions. And so, no, I think that there's still a place for press releases, but I think it's the way you go about it, not sending them every day, because then people are just going to block you because they're like, why is this interesting to me?
Yeah.
And doing it so that, you know, it's always just about standing out in the crowd. It's just, it's a tough, you know, as everything continues to get shorter and everything coming at you, the more concise you can be, the less noise you can continue to bring to everybody, and try to bring some kind of personalized, but I don't know, niche thing to it, that a story that a person can do that maybe nobody else can.
Yeah. And in this age of rage, and when people get, I'm sure you get text messages as well, especially with working in the media, would you get folks telling you, I can't believe this is happening? Do you have a recommendation on how people should consume the news, especially with it being so overwhelming with every social media platform and friends? You know, mine will text me, you know, send me things and be like, you know, and sometimes it's almost like I have to remember why we're being mad about something. You know what I mean? Like it's like it just seems like in this age of rage, folks are getting kind of not that they're getting triggered, but they're finding things that are kind of tripping them up during the day. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Do you have any recommendations on how people should consume the news as we move forward?
Shut off social media. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you go back to the old consider the source.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we've gotten so far away from so much, because you see a headline and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that. But then you're like, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Because you go read it and it's The Onion. I mean, I think people know what The Onion is, but, I go back to kind of the basics, and what I would tell people of just, I would get, you know, a local TV station, local news, a local paper subscription. And then one of the major ones that I know that there's so much controversy even over the New York Times versus the Washington Post versus the Wall Street Journal. But if you're kind of consuming a little bit of each and reading stories of similar, like, or the same story in each one, I think that you can continue to be informed and do it in a way that's healthy for you, and you're not just being consumed by it every day, or it's consuming you. Because I know it can get overwhelming, and there's so many different media outlets and different, as you said to begin with, just even everybody trying to be their own journalist, that it does get overwhelming. So I think if you can just kind of go back to the basics, I know that sounds very simple, but there are a lot of people that are really, you know, trying to continue to do good journalism and good work, and kind of sticking with where it all started might be key at this point.
Yeah. And how would y'all decide what you were going to put on that night? Like, was it just story of the day, or kind of how would you go about kind of figuring out, hey, this is what we need to go with today?
Yeah, and some of that would come from press releases if we knew, like, the governor was doing a big event, or a big bill was on the floor for the day. Yeah. We're like, okay, we need to cover this. This will be our lead story tonight. But just different pitches from reporters if they've got a good idea, or any of us that had something. And then if it was a slow news day, like, what could we come up with? We were always having to try and do some kind of evergreen stories of, you know, just if there was a day where there was nothing going on, which is rare, but something that we could kind of have in our back pocket. Yeah. So, you know, again, back to those press releases and just some of the things that are happening day to day. During session, obviously, it was never too difficult because there's always something going on. But in the summers, and then you're looking at campaigns and different things like that. So it was just kind of what would be of most interest to our viewers, at least that we think, and how can we do it in a way that's going to move the needle or push the story forward. And is that where sometimes relationships with people in the PR and comms world would help, if they were able to kind of tell you, hey, this is coming up? Or for sure. Would that be helpful for y'all? Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think that's, you know, you go back to, like, working those sources every day, and it's just like you've got, you know, I had a call list of people that maybe it wasn't every day, but I was always checking in saying, hey, you got anything that's coming up or anything that I should be, you know, looking into or whatnot. And so some of those little, you know, good sources that you've had over the years that may give you that story that you're going to break and exclusive and whatnot. So that was always kind of fun too. And now I'm in that role. So it's like, hey, I've got a story for you. And so paying it forward to all the journalists out there, and the from the comms people who helped over the years. Yeah.
Okay, talk about that, because you were delivering nightly news about politics in Austin, Texas. I mean, kind of the epicenter. You're at the top there, and as an anchor, and now and then you decide, okay, I'm gonna walk away from it. And what brought about that change, and kind of tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if first and foremost it wasn't family.
Yeah.
We've got a 4-year-old in January. She'll be 4. And it was just, the show was live at 7 every night. It was hard to get home at 8, sometimes later. But it was, it was a real tough decision, and it was something that took a while to kind of figure out. And shout out to my now bosses and company that I work for Hillco Partners, of giving me kind of the time to decide. But they came to me with this and wasn't really looking. And sometimes that's just kind of how things happen, and the best things happen. And pitched it. And I don't know how much they pitched it versus just kind of conversations about what this would look like. It's a newly created position. It's their first communications director over at Hillco Partners. And so they knew that they had a need for it, but they didn't really know what it looked like. Yeah. And so we talked a lot about what I could bring to the table, what it could look like into the future. And I think I was just at a point in my career where I was like, I've done this. I feel like I've done a good job. I hope I've done a good job. And it's a good time for me to step away and give somebody else an opportunity, because I stayed there way too long. I mean, maybe somebody else will stay there as long too. But I think for some people, maybe it's just like, oh, it's an opportunity for them to step in and grow in that role. But it was also an opportunity for me to try something new. Yeah. And it's been a year now. It's kind of crazy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But learning a lot, and I think that it's been a good transition. There's a lot of overlap, and so it's fun to see.
So now your role is communications director for a lobbying firm, and you kind of, what's kind of your I guess day to day, kind of what's your role there to help out?
Yeah, so I'm helping clients with, it's going back to the messaging, the storytelling, how to kind of cut through the noise and get their message across. So I'm trying to write those press releases and helping with op-eds and various things like that to get what they're trying to do out to the public, and get it in the media. But working a lot with our clients, digital strategy as well, and kind of moving into the next legislative session. This last one was my first, so it was kind of, finding my way around and seeing where I was needed the most, but really starting to figure out kind of the areas that we can tackle, and whether that be, with the storytelling side, which is always so key in messaging, but also the social media side, trying to figure out how that plays into everything and how best to navigate that, to just really working with our clients to, help them be prepared to speak and whether that be in front of legislators or to different audiences, and how to get their message across.
It sounds like a really important role, right? I mean, because you're still affecting change in Texas, and it seems like that's just such a natural thing you need, because otherwise policy or desire to change legislation just stays on the shelf, right? I mean, if you can't get the message out, because there's over 6,000 bills, 6,000 ideas every session, and if you're, like you said, if you can't cut through the noise, that thing ends up on the cutting room floor, right?
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, I think that everybody thinks they have a great idea. Yeah. And there are, sure, they don't.
There's over 6,000.
But sometimes, even if it's, a great idea, it's not going to go anywhere if you don't have a good message behind it, and if you don't have a good strategy behind it. And so I think it's just, for a lot of people, they don't understand how the legislative process works. And so I think that's something that I can also be very helpful in, having covered it for 16 years to our clients. But it's also just, then what do I do to get that in front of the people who matter, to get that message across? And, a lot of that's to their constituents. So going to their local paper, going to their local TV station, getting them, connected with them. And I think that's been helpful. I know it's been helpful for me just having those relationships with my, you know, former and fellow reporters, who now I can call up and say, hey, I've got this client, or I've got this story idea from a client that I'm working with, and kind of pitch it to them. And luckily and hopefully they trust me in what I'm telling them, and they've been interested to kind of take it on.
And that's something neat you must bring to the table, right? Because you have trust of fellow journalists, and you know what they need. They know you're going to be honest and transparent with them because you were just there.
Yeah, maybe too honest and transparent with them. Sometimes I'm like, off the record. I'm going back to like what I've always said, don't say that. But and it's come up, and it you know, it's been fun too, because I've kind of gone to the side of doing some analysis now, where I was always asking the questions, and now I've been able to do some of that, or being a spokesperson for some of our clients as well. So it's continuing to do a lot of the research and making sure I know all about the issue that I'm helping them craft a message around, just in case I am put on the spot and a camera and a microphone's thrown in my face, as opposed to me being the one doing that.
Well, that's exciting. It seems like a brand new challenge, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to be able to help out a lot of clients in that way.
Yeah, thank you. It has been so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, Karina, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. Good luck in the next chapter of your life, and thank you for all your service for all those years, bringing the political news to Texas.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.